Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. Let's talk about the wedding vows and those who interpret the idea of marriage the way I do. Those who are on the wise side of the debate and those who are on the stupid, dumber than dumber side of the debate. Those people who disagree with me about the videos on this playlist, what have you. Okay, so in the wedding vows it says, for richer or poor, right, through sickness and in health, what have you. Now, why would it matter if you start off poor or you start off with lots of money or with a middle class salary, what have you, if the vows include for richer or poor through sickness and health? The whole purpose of the vows is for you to be in the divine order. They never do it right, so to speak, right? I can't think of any marriage that was valid except for my parents and my grandparents, right? But the idea of it is that people are in the divine order that's approved by God, and that they're dating based on character and based on logical, moral ideas, right? They have a moral justification. It's not based on whether the person has enough money. They don't say, hey, do you promise that you have enough money to take care of this person, at least for the time being? The reason why they don't say that is because it's stupid, because it's shallow. Poor people all over the world get married all the time on top of that. So you think some poor person in Afghanistan or Brazil shouldn't be able to get married because he doesn't have a middle class salary? Or perhaps he should settle for an unattractive female? I mean, the type of people who think that are very stupid. Now, who's on my side of the debate? Obviously, I'm Christ, but also Jesus is a character in the story. Martin Luther King Jr., right? The content of the character. People often remix it to say the content of the character, not the content of the wallet. Not the contents of the wallet. Romeo and Juliet. Do you think they cared if they were rich or poor? No, they were in love. Let's talk about cartoon characters, because some of you people never grew up by far. Daniel Mouse from The Devil and Daniel Mouse. Tiny Tim from A Christmas Carol. Females historically would say things like, that's superficial, that's shallow, right? She's a gold digger, and so on and so forth. Now, on the other side of the debate, you'll see things like if a corporate chick rejected Jesus in a bar, okay, in a higher end bar, not in some kind of ruffian bar, in some kind of, just a regular bar that's more kind of appealing to classier people. A dumb female would say, of course she's going to reject you because she works for corporate. Now, if it was a plus-size chick who wasn't that attractive, she'd say, well, yeah, of course she wouldn't reject you because she's insecure. Now, they're not just saying, of course she would reject you. What they're saying is that they agree with it to a certain point, more often than not when they say that. They're reinforcing the social norm. Say, of course, that's how it is. They say, that's how it is. Instead of saying, you're right, that's not how it should be, and she has an option to not follow the crowd like a dumb, ditzy slut. So when you have the masses of people, especially females, saying that that's just how it is, they're showing that they're too stupid to be allowed to have sovereignty over their own body, whether they see that way or not, in terms of who to date. Because when you have a child, it affects us all. That child might be a mass murderer. That child might be a dumb female that shuns Jesus, which is worse than a mass murder. Okay? So when they show that inability to date based on the content of the character, it's like they're throwing grenades at people, right? It's only a matter of time before it blows up, before it costs people dearly. And I can't caution you enough. White supremacists, rich white supremacists, English royals, social clubs, corporations, right? Police officers, military officers, what have you, they don't know the difference between right and wrong for the most part. They're like criminally insane. They want to enforce white supremacy. They say, yes, if he's well assimilated into the society, then he should be allowed to do. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. They come at it from that angle. You all know what I'm talking about, that hypocritical church nonsense, that boarding school nonsense, that private school nonsense, the arrogant people at some fancy restaurant nonsense. Okay? Their scale is an abomination. Their scale for who is moral and who isn't, and who deserves an attractive female, right? They talk about the pecking order, the picking order. Okay? They don't know what they're talking about. They're trying to control reproduction. Look up eugenics. That was that crowd. Eugenics? The eugenicists weren't a bunch of homeless people. They were a bunch of rich people. They're the who's who in the churches. They're the who's who in academia, so to speak. What have you. Those people will ruin things real fast. If you give them the power to say, hey, yes, she shouldn't be. We'll hack her brain remotely and determine. Those people are sick people. And God absolutely forbids them to do that. Absolutely. Under no circumstances should rich white people, rich Jews, rich LGBT, token minorities, under no circumstances should they control reproduction first and foremost. And under no circumstances should anyone else but me control reproduction. Now, is it my intention to control reproduction? Okay. For the most part, no. If I was in charge of the world, the first thing I would do is I'd create a moral order, one that is acknowledged by society, that is, and I'd govern every region very fairly. And I'd impress upon people how stupid it is to date like a gold digger or a shallow person. And I'll make it clear that it is disgraceful to be materialistic. It is disgraceful to be a gold digger. It is disgraceful to be a scrupulous scum, a scumbag with no ethics, an indecorous, immoral dog. That it is unbelievably sickening, and it makes someone a subhuman. It reflects poorly on their peoples, their race, their nations, their families, their religion, their grouping, what have you. The people who do not choose character from their heart, with all their heart, that they should be ostracized from their communities. And that people should be very careful to make sure they have it right. Because in life, you have to judge. Stop judging by mere appearances, but instead judge correctly. That argument transcends people who misinterpret Matthew 7. When it says, don't judge or you'll be judged, it says, keep reading, keep reading. It says, first remove the log from your own eye, then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. It is actually saying to judge, but to first make sure you think clearly. Now, I'm going to make a distinction here. There's a difference between thinking more clearly than anyone who's ever lived, even though your brain is being attacked with technology, fumes, and poisons. Okay? Thinking clearly and stumbling on your words and not thinking clearly. I still know that 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, okay, plus 1 equals 5. Thinking clearly. And there's other tests that I give myself as well to make sure. Now, if I ever went to a coma or something, then you're all done. Okay? And your orders are to severely punish each other for mocking God to the extreme, and with an emphasis on the rich, mind you. Punish the rich in that scenario for mocking God by saying, well, the answer is just to put him in a coma, then one of us can be seen as in charge. Okay, how about that? That is unacceptable. And only the lowest stock bitch would come up with that pathetic fucking plan. So stop being gold-digging scum who break your vows to God before your vows to each other, not cheating, whatever. You should vow to God to try to be holy with all your heart. That's why it's for rich or poor, through sickness and in health. It's the idea of a moral bond. So when you reject Jesus as individuals, as a society, you have broken the covenant with God worse than the Jews did, and they broke it to a T beyond repair. So let me be clear about what I mean by the Jews broke the covenant. First of all, the Bible is figurative. But when the Jews claimed that it was literal, those of them who did, and when they behaved in the way that they have over the years, the covenant that everybody had with God, which is to tell the truth about God, to serve God with all their heart, and they'll be rewarded, they broke in that they claimed that they had a special covenant unfairly. That is not how the Bible is to be interpreted. When you say says who, okay, I'm not a mere rabbi, a mere priest or preacher or chaplain or ordained minister or pope or bishop, etc. I am the top martial artist ever possible, the expert on spiritual matters. When I, as the King of Kings, analyze Scripture carefully and ask myself, who is who, right? Martial arts, M-A, backwards is M. I am who I am. That's what it says in Exodus 3:14. Say, I am who I am. I am who I am. And I'm the top martial artist ever possible. Therefore, I'm the expert on religious matters, especially religious matters where it matters most, why we're here, what have you. Especially when it comes to who has a covenant with God, who's chosen, who has a special place, what have you. And I can say with certainty that the Jews do not have a special place. The Ethiopian Jews almost do, but they don't, because they don't obey God, their man. And there's no sign in history that either the white Jews, the Ethiopian Jews, or any other kind of Jew, other than a certain faction of Igbos who are considered the Jews of Africa, They're called the Jews of Africa, even though there's Ethiopians who are considered Jews. A story for another day. Okay, there's no sign of anything but that. But however, not all Igbos are chosen. Right now, it's just my father and I. Okay, and I'm part black, part white, part Igbo, part white. Okay, so I had to kind of clarify that. I'm not, a racist person. If black people had made a claim, and sometimes, in fact, let me speak on this right now here. There's some mulattoes who claim things that aren't true. There's some black people who claim things that aren't true. In the Bible, it says, do not exalt yourself in the king's presence. In a sense, we're all always in God's presence because God is watching us, right? So no one's supposed to claim that they have some special spiritual position that they don't have. They should never claim that. I know for sure that I'm God's son, the King of Kings, the top martial artist ever possible, with a universal scale, with sound and objective facts, with everything considered, with the objective facts considered, the irrefutable proofs considered, my top martial arts challenge going beyond all top martial arts challenge, my victories, what have you. The failure of other people who describe themselves as martial artists to have a lot of character and to make a challenge that puts them in the competition of who's number one, okay, overkill, so I'm number one. They're fanatic, they cling to their systems fanatically, they cling to their races and their religions, they follow the government, they follow the New World Order. It's very open and shut here. Nothing comes close to my top martial arts challenge, my world record speed, and my heritage as the true king of the Igbos. And Igbo, Waikiro Obi means black belt. Obi is Igbo spelled backwards. Okay, so Obi meaning belt. And in Igbo, it means King Heart Hut Essence Center Temple Core. They're both a sign of rank, so they both point to me as the King of Kings. Because if you're the king of martial arts, martial is marital scrambled, and I, Christ, and the bridegroom, then you're the king of kings. If you're the king of martial arts of all time, that is, then you're the king of kings. That's me. So I'm the king of kings. And Obi in Igbo, Obi is even Igbo spelled backwards, means King Heart Hut Essence Center Temple Core. So the essence of being the top martial artist ever possible is being the top martial artist ever possible while being the king of the Igbos, which is what I am. And what are the odds? What are the odds that no one can beat me? And that wordplay points to me. Okay? That is a miracle in itself in a sense, but it's just the obvious miracle of life and the divine order that God set apart, that God forged and created and presented. So if you're calling me a liar on this issue, you're calling God a liar. Now, I might have made minor mistakes in my videos, very minor mistakes. The location of a temple in Egypt, what have you. It doesn't change the overall core argument. So if you're calling me a liar when it comes to the overall core argument of the divine order, of what God expects you to do, what attractive females should do, what have you, then you're calling God a liar. It's that simple.